In our series of pre-election interviews, we turn to a candidate from South Boston running for re-election as City Councilor at large. We'd like to welcome Michael Flaherty. Thank you very much for being with us, Councilor.
Hey Chris, great to see you. Wish we were in studio, but hopefully we will be soon enough. And I appreciate you paying attention to this race and inviting me on.
And thank you for joining us as well. Councilor, I want to ask you about the moment in your role in this, in the council. You're the senior member of the council in terms of at least our time in this world, but at the same time, this is a council that's been going through some big changes, not just the people represented in the focus, but even the sense of structural mission. I mean, how have you been processing that?
That's great. Obviously, we're a city. I feel that we're a city in transition. We're going to have a new administration. There will be at least 5 new members elected to the city council this year. They will be joining 4 members that are currently in their first term. So in a 13-member body, 2/3, a supermajority, will have 1 term or less experience. My reputation, obviously, is someone that knows city government. I've been a bridge builder. I've been a consensus builder. So my role in terms of being a mentor and working with newer members, has obviously served me and also our city well. So as a senior member who knows the rules and knows how to get things done and can help new members and my colleagues navigate through City Hall and to help their constituents, which in turn helps our city, I feel that my experience will bode well in this election, particularly as we usher in a new administration at the same time.
In this past term, you had a special role with COVID-19 recovery. How did you make a difference in that?
Well, we're in the process of doing that now. So we created a brand new committee. Council President O'Malley created a standalone committee on COVID-19 recovery. So I'm chairing that. And it's based on the fact that, one, I'm a citywide city councilor, also my experience and my relationships, in conjunction with the administration asking me to serve on the task force. So I'm sort of on playing 2 roles there. And so as we go out across the city and we listen to folks, the focus is to make sure that we direct these very precious funds in excess of $400 million to communities and to people and entities that have been hit the hardest. You think about what we're struggling with, and you've seen what the pandemic has exacerbated with respect to, whether it's the digital divide, whether it's the opportunity gap, whether it's the education and achievement gap. Health discrepancy. So we've had enough of that. So now we have these very precious funds that we can now put to work. And so our goal is to make sure that it's done fairly and equitably, but that we target those hardest hit. We have an affordable housing crisis. We need to get our kids back to school. Arguably, some of them have almost missed an entire year of education, or they're a grade level behind, as well as our small businesses. A lot of our small businesses, our shops, our bodegas, our restaurants have all suffered, and their employees have suffered. So an infusion of some very much needed funding will go a long way. Our hope is that in the very near future, hopefully this fall, we'll be able to disperse some of those funds that will carry us over through the new year and into the spring.
Speaking of recovery, one thing that candidates premier are unable to agree on is whether we should have a moratorium for evictions. Do you see a need for that continuing?
Yeah, it's a split bag, Chris, because in Boston, we have a lot of small property owners that depend on those rents to make their mortgage. And then we obviously have a lot of absentee landlords and/or rent gougers who have been participating in sort of exacerbating the affordable housing crisis. So trying to strike a balance there, particularly if there are funds available. So we hear it from both ends. We hear it from folks, particularly in expiring use buildings that are basically being pushed out because the terms and conditions are changing, and we're putting pressure on those landlords to honor and to keep that expiring use going, but shifting gears to sort of small property owners that are depending on those rents. So what I'm saying to folks is, if you have the ability, because Chris, some folks during COVID didn't miss a beat. Some people continued to work, they continued to earn a paycheck, and that was fortunate and great for them. And there were others that were decimated. So what I say to folks, if you have the ability to pay your mortgage, I would encourage them to do so, particularly if they're in a situation where they're in a 2 or 3 family home and it's an owner occupied, where the owner, the small property owner, depends on that rent to be able to make the rent. We don't want to see lots of homes going into foreclosure. That said, we also have the other side of that equation, which is folks that have been gouging people and that trying to throw people out in the street during a pandemic, which I've got zero tolerance and patience for that. So and we need to make sure that we're protecting Boston's most vulnerable residents, our seniors, folks on fixed incomes, and and folks in the disability community, as well as young families trying to start out who their parent and or parents have lost work through the pandemic. So it's, again, trying to strike a balance and then use those very precious COVID relief funds to identify where we can bring relief. In situations where we can help a renter, it should be applied. Are there situations where we could help a small property owner? We should also apply it there as well.
Another example of urgent need for recovery is around Mass Ave and Cass Boulevard. Recovery can take a long time, but there are people out there saying we need something done quickly too. What do you want to see?
Yeah, well, I can say the place is a mess over there. I go through it regularly. Nobody, Chris, nobody over there is getting straight, sober, or their life back on track. We have to agree on at least that. The conditions over there are beyond deplorable and arguably inhumane. There are lots of poor souls over there, many of whom are not from Boston, which underscores the fact that this is a regional problem, Chris, that demands a regional response. We have to put pressure on our suburban counterparts because their residents, their sons and daughters are over at Mass and Cass as well, and help us decentralize the services over there, provide more detox and recovery opportunities in your respective communities, the halfway and the three-quarter houses. When you have folks over there that are incapable of making good decisions for themselves and for their own health and well-being, government and or their families need to make it for them. And so we have a situation where you've got predatory drug dealing going on over there regularly. You've got sexual assault and or violence. You've had multiple stabbings. Enough is enough. We need to clean up the Mass and Cass area. For those that are willing and ready and able to get treatment and recovery, let's find it for them. Let's find those beds and get them on a path to recovery. For those that are over there preying on people in a predatory manner, we need to take action and stop the open air drug dealing and get those folks out of there. And if they want recovery in the process, then we'll work on it. But you can't have it all at one time. And every time that the public safety folks get involved, the public health people jump up and down. And anytime the public health people are jumping down and not involving the public safety. So we need to work together on this, Chris. And at the end of the day, nobody over there is getting straight, sober, or their life back on track. And I say enough is enough. We have to clean it up. We have to decentralize it. And we need more partners in it. And waiting for the island and the bridge and all this, it's all semantics. At the end of the day, kids are over there, they're dying. And we need to do a better job. And whether that's through Section 35, court-ordered treatment and recovery options, I'll support any mechanism where we can start to get those poor souls on the right track. And when you're on the opioids for the extent of time that the individuals over there are on, these 30-day spin dries, not working, Chris. You need to have at least 1 year of sobriety and straight and sober under your belt just to have a fighting chance. And then the wraparound services, housing, education, healthcare, it's a full court press. And the travesty is that we're home to all of that. We've got the best hospitals and network of communities, health centers in the world. We've got the best institutions. CEOs are moving their companies here regularly to take advantage of all that Boston has to offer. And yet that opportunity is not trickling out and over into Mass and Cass. And quite frankly, the residents over there, the taxpayers, the businesses, the employees that work in those businesses, they've had it, and it's not fair to them. And so we need to clean it up, we need to decentralize it, and we need more partners to help us in this effort.
A lot of candidates are talking about wanting wholesale improvements in the Boston Public Schools, and maybe you're one of them, but tell me about the work that you've done on this transition from high school to college, because I guess you've been making some progress with that.
So we helped co-found Boston Year 13. It's an additional year for Boston public high school students, and it gives them 1 year of sort of an intense college prep exposure to the curriculum, as well as getting their SAT scores, and also focusing on STEM. What I do notice, and particularly in my neighborhood in the South Boston waterfront, with all the CEOs that are bringing their companies here, that opportunity is not trickling out to the neighborhoods. And we're still probably teaching to the MCAS test. We really need to have a curriculum within the Boston Public Schools that speaks to the economy. And as the economy moves forward and as the jobs are coming online in Boston, if we're not preparing our next generation to take advantage of those opportunities, we're missing the boat here. So I'm putting pressure on Boston Public Schools to start to have a curriculum that models Boston's emerging economy. In addition to that, within Boston Year 13, we started the program with a great partnership with Wentworth. It's now been expanded. We had two 25 student cohorts. We now have a 40 student cohort partnered with UMass out on the Mount Ida campus. and we'll help obviously get them into sort of college mode. With the subject matter acumen, SAT scores, they have an opportunity to matriculate into the UMass system, or they can go anywhere you want. So it's a program that is working. It's called Boston Year 13. So for those that are watching, if they have a student that's in the 12th grade that kind of doesn't really know what they want to do, or may have chosen a school but didn't get in because their SAT scores weren't high enough, and they want to commit to a 1 year. And for those that where school's not for them, because like when we were in school, school's not for everyone, there is an opportunity for them to get into robotics or digital ready, digital engineering, things like that. So there are also on-ramps and pathways to careers. We get if you think about anytime a building is built, we've got the loading dock covered, we've got the construction job covered. We want to make sure that we start getting those corner offices covered. We want those real high-paying jobs, those careers. Those jobs are not trickling out to Boston's neighborhoods. And I feel that my role as an at-large member, the one that has the relationships and the experience, that if I can bring those together so that we can create more opportunity to close the wealth gap, to close the opportunity gap, to close the achievement gap. And that all starts with our Boston Public Schools. Get these kids into school earlier, but let's have course loads that are more reflective as to what's going on in our city on the job, in the economy, and the job market.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, and hopefully your voters get out there on Tuesday. Thank you, Chris. Good to see you.
Running for re-election, Boston City Councilor at Large, Michael Flaherty.